Basketball, football, baseball. From Division I to Division III, it's time for College Sports Weekly with Don Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
This is College Sports Weekly here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Alongside the Professor Dan Underberg, I'm Don Macholis. Aaron Morse on the ones and twos today. How are you, bud?
I'm doing well. Glad to be a part of the show.
Well, we're happy to have you. He'll be running for the hills when he's done with us. I'll tell you that. But good to have you on board.
Yeah.
Charlie, if you're listening, have fun at your wedding. We'll look forward to some stories next week. But in the interim, we've got a number of things to get to today, which we will do here over the next 120 minutes. I don't know about you guys, but Daniel, I caught it. I caught a little Panther fever yesterday in that big win against Auburn. And what a way to kind of carry the momentum. I'm sure it's a question we're going to ask. And I'll say this right off the top. Coming up at 10 o'clock, Sean Wagner, the head coach for the UWM Panthers, is going to join us and talk about yesterday's win and the upcoming matchup, who we don't know yet the opponent, who that will be, because the game got rained out last night. So between NC State and UCF, they'll first pitch it right after our show at 11:02. I think it's scheduled for. And the winner of that game then will play UWM this evening. First pitch slated for right around 7 o'clock. And Dan, it was one of those yesterday. And again, I don't want to get too knee deep into this because, again, we'll have Coach on at 10 o'clock. But they jump out to that 10-0 lead. And then Auburn chips back a little bit. They got some insurance runs, which were very important. The thing that scared me the most for me was the rain delay. So you go into that rain delay. You had that momentum, again, our key word for today. And I thought, oh, dear heavens, please don't let suddenly the tide switch. No pun intended to our War Eagle fans and our Alabama fans. I know that can get a little ugly down there. But I was just afraid the momentum was going to switch. But UWM came out, held their ground, only went through 2 pitchers.
Yeah.
So you got a pretty fresh staff going into tonight's game, whoever that opponent will be. Fun time. I'm very, very happy for that university.
Well, yeah, Cinderella lives in Milwaukee. You know that?
You.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's such a pleasant kind of surprise to see the Panthers in the tournament and playing the way they are right now, to have this streak of wins that they've had, and carry it over. And that's why, it's the old saying, it's why you play the game,
right? And
here they are, 2 games away from moving on in this incredible tournament. And for the record, I think when it comes down to NCAA tournaments, the basketball is king, right? But in terms of going to a game and taking it all in, whoever gets to go to Omaha, that is, for my money, the best tournament out there. When you are there for the finals, for the World Series, that is 2 weeks of baseball heaven where everybody's in a good mood. It would be fantastic to see the Panthers down there.
Absolutely. And it's on a much grander scale than when you go to the Final Four. You go to Final Four, and that Saturday is always wonderful because you've got 4 teams who think they still have a shot.
Right.
And do.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away. So as you said, the fan base, they're excited, they're happy, everything that's taking place. Now put that almost on steroids because of the number of teams that go into Omaha to finish out the College World Series. The event is a party.
It's
like no
Summerfest
other.
down there is what it is.
Especially if you love college sports, right? Speaking of college sports, we want to start today because what we have in front of us in the upcoming week could alter the college landscape just a little bit. A bipartisan Senate bill has been established by Republican Ted Cruz and Democrat Maria Cantwell. Now, they have devised a bill that will have hearings this week and then go to a vote, hopefully by next week, once they do all the edits and things that they do when Bill was just sitting on Capitol Hill trying to become law for anybody who remembers. See, That went right over
Yeah.
Aaron's head. Has no idea about Schoolhouse Rock. That just, he looked at me
Every
like, I
Saturday
have
morning.
no idea what you're talking
Can you
about.
tell me
Yeah.
about conjunctions?
Yeah,
You know-
I mean, I think maybe I'm very slightly familiar with it.
He's getting homework.
Maybe,
Professor, you got to give him homework today when we walk out of here.
maybe I know it and I'm just not connecting it. But yeah,
You know, maybe
it's not
during
coming-
commercial we
Yeah.
can find
Yeah,
it.
we can do that.
Bring it back, run
it back,
All right,
yeah.
So we'll get Aaron up to speed. But nonetheless, this bipartisan bill is going to try and address some of, I'll call them the pitfalls that we've been talking about for heaven knows how long now when it comes to this landscape that we currently sit in. So what we have are a number of clips from Senator Ted Cruz. Now, these clips were taken from his podcast. So The Verdict with Ted Cruz is a podcast that he puts out. So the clips are from that particular podcast in which he tries to break down the bill, again, that's being put forth in committee before it goes for a vote within the entire Senate. So clip number 1 deals with NIL compensation. Aaron, if you could hit that, please.
Well, so what this bill does, it protects, number one, the right of every athlete to get compensated for real NIL, for name, image, and likeness. So if a quarterback is selling tennis shoes, and if that quarterback can sell millions of tennis shoes, that quarterback should be compensated millions of dollars. If you're producing that value, those contracts should be fully honored. This bill protects that. It also protects the rights of athletes to participate in revenue sharing. And there was a big litigation over college sports and a settlement that agreed to a revenue sharing agreement so that universities now can pass on significant portions of the revenue that is being earned to the athletes. And so that's protected. But what it doesn't allow is fake NIL deals. What it doesn't allow is a booster handing a bag of cash to an athlete in a dark alley just to get that athlete to play at their school. And so it draws a line between real NIL and just fake boosters trying to game the system.
I think in theory, what is being proposed is wonderful, but we've been handing bags of cash to players for the better part of the last half century. I don't know how that gets dissipated. The one thing I'll also say, Dan, before you jump in, is that I didn't hear, and again, pulled out some clips to try and make things a little bit more concise. I never heard anything about a salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about revenue sharing. That's great. We've got revenue sharing right now. We said, we being the NCAA and the presidents and everybody else, that you could spend up to $20.5 million on your student athletes. Nobody does that because we've exceeded it, is where I'm going with this. So without a cap, yes, it's wonderful that the quarterback, the Arch Mannings of the world, can make $1 million selling eyewear or whatever the case may be. Where do we cap this thing off?
Right.
Because right now we've blown past it, and there's nothing on the horizon that says anytime soon that we're going to corral this thing and bring it back to reality.
So from that clip, what I took too, and I hear everything you're saying, but I had to chuckle a little bit. The idea of it's not going to be allowed anymore to take a bag of cash in a dark alley and hand that off. Well, Ted, it's never been allowed. That's why they're handing a bag of cash in a dark alley. Okay. It's so you're not fixing any problem.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just part of the deal. Okay?
That was well done.
So yeah, I mean, he's starting to boost this up like this is going to solve the problem. Number one, you're not going to solve the problem. Once you go past the 20 million, once you go past the NIL, there's still going to be a way for particular athletes to get a little bit more. That is the way of the world when it comes to, high level athletes and doing that. You're not going to get rid of it. But yeah, when I heard that this is it's not going to be allowed. It's already not allowed.
Well, and here's the other thing, Aaron, and you can jump in on this too. We need, in essence, some transparency when it comes to what is actually being paid for positions, because everything that you get is hearsay. And so you look at the NFL, you know what everybody is making. And it's laid out there so that if I come in as, the 15th string quarterback, I can say, here's what the other 15th string quarterbacks are making, grab my average, and then base where I feel my worth is off of that. Everything that these young men are basing their platform on is all hearsay, and nobody has any idea within reason of what Indiana is paying, or Minnesota, or Illinois. You can go right down the line.
Well, I think basically where you're getting to is people have to say no to these kids, right? If they come with a number and these schools say, well, we don't really see your value at that, and you can't just come back and say, well, yeah, maybe, but this guy's getting $3 million. I mean, nobody knows exactly. So at some point, maybe somebody has to say no. It seems like right now, all the schools and all the people recruiting these guys are just saying, all right, sure, yes.
We need a few more. I won't say one more. We need a few more. We saw it last year with Tennessee, with the young man with the long last name that I would absolutely butcher right now if I tried to spit it out, who went
Nico Iamaleava.
There you go.
Right there.
Ding,
well
ding,
done.
ding.
Yes. You just made up for the bill and the whole schoolhouse.
Yeah, there you go.
But we need some more of that, I guess, is where I'm going, where Tennessee was like, you tried to play the game, we're not playing it. It's time to move on.
Well, and they're really quick. There are institutions that'll look at you and say, this is what we're going to pay you. And like, I think kind of a Notre Dame uses this approach. This is what we're going to pay you. And if that's not enough, thank you very much. We'll go to the next person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to the contrary, though, you're going to have schools that are desperate and will fork over the bag of cash in the back alley in order to try to get that 4 or 5 star recruit. All right. Ted Cruz then goes on in his podcast to talk about another issue, and that's parental travel for the athletes' families and also their health. Here's what it sounded like.
And by the way, one of the things this bill protects explicitly is the ability of programs to cover travel expenses for the family of players. So that's something that is explicitly allowed under the bill and carved out as legitimate. This bill also ratchets up health and safety standards for student athletes, and it puts in place rules that you can't just ignore a concussion. You got to have health and safety standards. It requires far more extensive health insurance for student athletes than you have right now, including 5 years of health insurance after playing for injuries or disease from things that occurred while playing.
It's in theory good. Again,
I love how that started.
I have a hard time after wanting somebody to put out some guardrails to be highly critical, because you at least need a jump off spot. And I think that's what we might get from this bill. I think there's going to be at some point, whether it's prior to it becoming enacted or after it is an enacted piece of legislation, that we're going to get some amendments attached onto it. So let's start in reverse and talk about the health thing. I've said for years that had the NFL come up with a better healthcare system for their players once they have left, many of those lawsuits that we've seen wouldn't have been in play. But then I look at what's being proposed, and what's being proposed, I think, again, great starting point, 5 years, but 60 million? What's 60 million going to cover when you're talking about, in essence, in Division I, hundreds of thousands of athletes, because I'm talking football all the way down to the rowing team. That pool of money is going to be eaten up like there's no tomorrow. I think, again, in theory, it's good, but the dollars don't equate to what I think is going to take place once these injuries get reported and they're seeking medical attention.
Yeah, I agree with you. The 60 million feels like, well, we need them. Someone's going to ask how much this is going to cost. How about 60? And we put it in there, and I don't know where that number's coming from. And what popped into my head was, it had nothing to do with football or basketball. For me, it was about women's volleyball. Athletes that traditionally have had, I don't want to over dramatize this, but at the same time, it happens. Significant knee injuries. You hear about them all the time in women's volleyball that they're able to rehab oftentimes and come back from, but at the same time, sometimes you can't, right? And when we think about these things, we think about football and
Mhm.
primarily men's basketball. We're not thinking about what's going on in hockey and the abuse that the body takes in there. We're not thinking about women's volleyball. We're not thinking about wrestling.
Mhm.
All those different elements that could pull from the $60 million kitty, I'll call it. And yeah, it's not going to be enough. And the devil's going to be in the details. How is it dispersed? Where do they get it? How do you basically legitimize that? Yeah, this is worth pulling from this amount. There's a lot in here that it sounds, oh, 60 million. That's
Yeah.
great. Then you break it down for about 2 minutes. Like, oh, wait a minute. There's more in here that we're not thinking about.
Well, Aaron, if anybody has been in the hospital in the last decade and you get the itemized bill and you see what a hospital charges for a Tylenol when you could get, a case of it at Walgreens for what they charge for one, again, that's where I think the 60 million, to your point, Dan, it's a great starting number. Okay, well, let's throw it out there. I just think of it in terms of if you're going to ask that fund to support student athletes, their injuries, their illness, whatever the case may be, for 5 years after service, I'll say it that way, to the university, it's going to be running a deficit in a heartbeat.
Well, we were talking yesterday about the MLB and the MLBPA and their discussions about their CBA, and both of them had an offer, and they seemed like good offers, but there's details underneath that we haven't seen yet. And it's the first offer. Neither side is going to come with their best offer first. That's just how you negotiate. So maybe 60 million it seems like a good number. Maybe. I don't know. We don't know. I guess we have to see the details there. And is the first offer or the first number always the number that people are willing to go, or they maybe are trying to maybe get a little leg up, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think there's a whole lot more conversation around that number.
The idea of it being a jumping point as far as a negotiation in all of that takes place in the midst of that. I think that was a really great point. The thing, Dan, we were talking about before walking into the studio is now, let's say the 5 years are done and those knees, those shoulders, the elbows, you can go right down the line, are now an existing condition that will plague that student athlete in essence for the rest of their life. And now they've got to go get insurance. But what's the insurance company going to say? Well,
Right.
you've got a pre-existing health condition. So either A, we're going to deny you coverage,
Correct.
or B, we're going to give you coverage, but wait till you see the bill in order to obtain that coverage. That's another avenue that I would throw an amendment to. And I'm not smart enough to figure out how that would all work, but I think that's something that needs to be considered for the longevity of that particular individual.
Yeah, as we go through these clips, to me, there's a lot of times where my snide, cynical brain goes, well, there will be lawyers. And this is one of them, right? Because if you can determine that significant damage was done to the body by way of playing football or basketball or hockey,
Right.
you pick your sport. And that university, that time at that university is where it happened and has not been taken care of. You look at this and say, well, 5 years is what you get. Like, probably not. It's not going to do it. You can imagine, don't you get the feeling sometimes with as NIL has evolved and portal has evolved and now congressional efforts have evolved, that there's just a line of lawyers that are just, in fact, now they're going to be there's just going to be nothing but a firm that just focuses on college athletics. This is what we do. We're not going to do anything else.
We're going to get into the SEC a little bit later
Okay.
because I think this is going to carry because
Yeah,
I
what do
think
lawyers have to do with the SEC?
Oh, just wait. Just wait. Nice tease there by the professor on the other side of the table. Let's talk about the transfer portal. We'll run the clip from Senator Cruz. And again, it's one of these issues that I think has really plagued the current status of college sports. But let's listen in to how
what the bill provides is that every athlete is entitled to one free transfer. So you can transfer anytime, no questions asked. For a second transfer, it lays out specific reasons. So number one, if your coach quits. If your coach quits, you can transfer somewhere else. Number two, if your program is canceled. Well, if your program is canceled, you can transfer somewhere else if you want to play at another school. Or number three, if you're a victim of a sexual assault or sexual harassment, those exceptions are carved out. You can have a second transfer. But other than those exceptions, if you transfer a second time, you're required to redshirt for a year. You're required to sit out for a year.
So that essentially is what the rule used to be. The rule used to be is if you want to transfer, you have to sit out a year. You lose a year of eligibility. And I think what it did for many athletes is made them really sit down and consider whether transferring was the best option.
Mhm.
Now, halfway through a season, you can say, I'm not playing. I don't like sitting the bench. I'm not used to this. You promised me this. This is what I'm getting. I'm out. I'm gone. I'm not going to play. I'm going to redshirt myself, and I'm not going to play this season because I'm going to jump in the transfer portal. So again, these things in theory sound well, but to your point prior to the clip, watch the lawyers line up, because one of the reasons we got to NIL and the transfer portal in its existence now is simply because it was breaking antitrust laws. I don't see how this fixes it.
I don't either. And I also have to think about the student athlete that is going to go or be forced into redshirting. How does that impact NIL? How does that impact their payment? And suddenly there's going to be a financial hardship forced upon the student because they can't play. Again, another reason to have attorneys involved with this. Okay. So this is a really weak portion of what he's putting out there. And I just, I laugh because, well, if your coach leaves, you can go.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And in the other provisions that were in there, especially, and I want to talk very carefully about this, the idea of the sexual assault component of it, which is, and my feeling on that is, well, yeah, duh. Why does that even need to be in there? It's if something that horrific has happened to a student athlete, then yes, that person should automatically get to go, not just because the bill allows it, and then the other part is, well, look, we all know why this bill is here. Football, men's basketball primarily, right? And he's saying, well, if your program closes, okay, if it's a D3 program, maybe, but how many D1 programs have shut down?
Well, I think where they were going with that particular statement, again, and we're only taking snippets from the podcast, is they were addressing the fact that we're already starting to see a number of the big non-revenue sports. We've talked about tennis and some of the others that have folded. And so I think that's where that was thrown into the mix.
Let me fight back on that a little bit, though.
Well, you go ahead before we get to a break.
It's do it in 10 seconds. It's just 20, you got 20 million to play with, especially if it's D1, if you're up there. And how much of that money is actually going to the Olympic sports?
Oh, right. Well, and that's the problem.
Right.
And that's why they're folding. And that's why we see the need for, or at least we're hoping that Congress will step in and put some parameters around this thing.
These parameters suck right now. The way they've got them set up, I'm not happy with that.
Wow. Boy. Way to soften the blow.
Okay, let's go to commercial. He said too much.
Stop talking. Yeah.
That's quite all right. All right, let's do that, though. Let's get to a commercial. And on the other side, there's a couple of other components of this bill that we'll go ahead and discuss, even though Dan has quite eloquently told us what he really feels about the current legislation as it's proposed. And we'll do it after this timeout. It's College Sports Weekly, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. There we go. There you go, Aaron.
Whew, you sure got to climb a lot
This
of
is-
steps
That's what we
to get
got.
to the Capitol
Oh, my
building here in
goodness.
Washington.
Sit in front of the TV in the family room
Saturday morning.
Saturday mornings.
Should we just listen to this the rest of the
You
segment?
bet.
Yeah.
Let that go a minute.
And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
There we go. All right. It's College Sports
Thank you
Weekly.
for that moment, Aaron.
Yes,
Of course.
Live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. As always, we are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. So we gave Aaron a little lesson in Schoolhouse Rock during the commercial break. He was kind enough to bring us back with that particular clip because that's what we're talking about. We've got a bill being proposed, a bipartisan bill in Congress that is hoping to be voted out of committee to get to the floor of the Senate here shortly, in trying to put some parameters around NIL, the transfer portal, and everything else that's taking place within the world of college sports. One of the things that gets addressed in this particular bill is the idea of eligibility. And once again, this clip, courtesy of Ted Cruz's podcast.
So the transfer portal reform is really important. And eligibility, we put in clear rules that every athlete's entitled to 5 years of eligibility, and a hard cap of age 24 is the oldest you can be. And so
I love that rule.
You know, we're not going to have 27, 28-year-old guys. It's not fair for a 28-year-old guy to play against an 18-year-old guy. There's just differences that make it not fair.
It's again one of those things that I think is common sense, much like one of the ideas you were addressing before we got to break.
Mhm.
But every time, Dan, I think the cynical side of your brain is correct. Every time I hear an arbitrary number like 24, I think, okay, that means the lawyers are going to line up and ask why 24? Why not 23? Why not 22? Whatever the case may be. Now, he'll go on to talk about if you serve time in the military. There were one or two items that would offset the idea of capping it at 24 that would allow you the ability to maybe go until you're 25, whatever the case may be. Now, again, it seems like common sense that we should not have 28-year-olds playing college football. This is really, again, what we focus on. We're not talking about wrestling and tennis. It just doesn't seem to fit in that mold right now. We're mainly talking about basketball, and we're talking about football, that we shouldn't have 28-year-olds. There's also a stigma in there about coming over after you've played professional sports. I mean, he goes to use the example of, can you imagine LeBron James now wanting to say, oh, let me use my college eligibility if we don't have an age cap on it, because as we all know, LeBron went straight out of high school.
Mhm.
Giannis, I mean, it was a running joke last year
Yeah.
on social media, like he could go to Marquette and play a few years at Marquette because he still has his college eligibility. I hear it and I'm like, I'm all for it. But again, watch the law firms line up and challenge every single step as this thing
Yeah.
gets imparted.
Yeah, that's their job, guys, right? And I look at this and this part I can actually comprehend, because there's been so much conversation about, like you're saying, guys that are 26, 27, 28 years old playing, and it just seems so ridiculous, right?
Mhm.
And okay, trying to wrap some type of guardrail around the idea of this is a college athlete. Somewhere between 18 and 24 is where you're going to be. But like you brought up the idea of or the provision of, if someone serves in the military, right?
Mhm.
Well, then what happens? Someone comes back out at 21, then they're going to be 25, 26. How does that work out? The other part I get to, though, if someone has a significant injury and it takes them a year and a half to rehab before they can get back there, that pushes them back. I mean,
Okay,
there
but
should be a reason in there, and I hope that there is.
But that's where I'll push back a little bit, because we seemingly have this affliction when it comes to college sports
Mhm.
that when an athlete gets injured, regarding eligibility that they should have all the time in the world to get back into the mix. And I keep thinking about high school athletes who get injured their junior or senior year. And I mean, that's just it. It's just the way it goes. You got X number of years of eligibility. I'm sorry you got hurt, but this is what you got. I'm just having a hard time always thinking that, to use your example,
Did
to
we
give
just flip
somebody
bodies?
to give somebody a year and a half to come back and try to get themselves back on the field so they can put something on tape. At some point, go. This is what the UFL is for. I'm on football right now. This is what the UFL is for. It's the G League. Let's face it. We can Fox, ESPN, they can all sell it like this is great spring pro football. Fine. It's the G League for the NFL. That's where you manifest to. That's where you exit out of college. You go into UFL. You get your stuff on tape there. I don't think I need to give you 2, 3, 4 years to rehab, come back, or because you had the sniffles and missed 6 games, you don't get an opportunity to continually redshirt to maintain your eligibility.
Yeah, but they're really bad sniffles. Okay. I mean, they make me feel real sick.
I would bring up the idea of you guys are bringing up injury or military.
Yeah.
How about religious reasons, missions? There's a couple of BYU basketball players the past couple of years who are very old because they've been on religious missions, and how does that play into it as well?
Yeah,
no,
I
think
it's a great point.
That's a great point that I don't think always gets considered.
The idea of having a hard cap for age, I get. Okay. And there's a part of me that really appreciates where you're going with the thought process of the idea of, look, how much time do you get before it's just time to stop or try a different route? Yeah. And that part too is, did you graduate? Are you in good? We're talking about money. We're talking about opportunity to play. We're talking about coaching. We're doing all these things. And yet there's this wonderful term called student athletes. And we're not talking about academic eligibility, where they are, all those different things. And if they don't have that eligibility in spite of the injury, then maybe you're right. Where I'm going with this is that if you have a high level professional athlete that may be pushed into 25, high level college athlete that may be pushed into 25 for an extra year, what they're absolutely going to say is they need that extra year to prove that they're healthy and they can get into the draft. And you're giving me the look.
I'm giving it.
I get what you're saying. And in our perfect world, that's what we would do. We're sorry, 24 is 24. That's it. But if there's anything we've learned in the last 5 years in college athletics, perfect's got nothing to do with it.
You have a point. And I love the point about eligibility. Since NIL, since the transfer portal, we hear nothing about academic eligibility. It has all been driven by the finances. That's good English on a Saturday morning. By finances and by the ability to transfer. No one talks about what the educational opportunities are. Because again, it's funny because we're looking at college athletics now. It used to be you aspire to get to the NBA, the NFL, the NHL. Now, because you can make more in college, I'll get there when I get there. It's an afterthought, and that isn't the way the system should be set up. Now, for colleges, there's the benefit of we're retaining more juniors and seniors who aren't opting out early. That's great. But the aspiration of moving on isn't there. There's nothing to drive that person.
It's assumed
to try and get to that next level. And I don't think yet, because we're still in the infancy, I don't think yet we've truly wrapped our arms around what is going to happen to some of these athletes who have made a ton of money in college, who don't get the opportunity to go the next step as far as professional athletics are, and now have to go out and get a real job where they made maybe $3.5-4 million to play football. Again, I'm using football as the example.
No, I got you.
And now have to go work at, I don't know, IBM or Northwestern Mutual or whatever the case may be. And their starting salary is what, 58.5, if I'm being generous. I just don't think we've wrapped our arms around that. All right, one more clip. This one talks about, again, this is Ted Cruz on his podcast with this upcoming bipartisan bill, talking about the idea of not having super leagues and the idea of how media rights can be shared.
What does this bill do? Number one, it explicitly prohibits a super league. It prohibits the Big Ten and the SEC from combining. It just says, no, that's bad for sports. It's bad for athletes. It's bad for football. That is prohibited. Now, you know what? The leadership of the SEC in particular is not happy about prohibiting a super league. But secondly, so the way I looked at this problem, there are two elements. There's a cost element and a revenue element. On the cost side, you want to slow down the out-of-control spiraling that is bankrupting most of the programs so that the programs can stay vibrant and kids can keep having these opportunities. But on the revenue side, we looked hard for how do we grow the revenue that is available to fund college sports. And what we do is we allow colleges to join together and negotiate for media rights jointly. That's awesome. Believe will significantly increase the revenue. So, for example, the number one source of eyeballs and revenue in TV is the NFL. It's massive.
Yep.
The number two is college football. And yet, amazingly, even though a lot more people watch college football than the NBA makes billions more in its media contracts. And there's a reason. The NBA negotiates as one unit. You don't have the Houston Rockets negotiating against the Knicks and fighting each other. And yet in college conferences, that's what you have. So this allows conferences to come together. It's voluntary, so no one's forced to come together.
Yeah, no one's forced to.
But it lets them come together and negotiate jointly for media rights. I believe that would expand by billions of dollars, the money coming in, which means there's more money for the other sports. And we write in that if you do this, if you get joint media rights, you must maintain every single roster spot and every single scholarship spot for women's and men's sports, for Olympic sports, for track and field, for tennis, for all the non-revenue sports. You got to maintain them if you're getting a lot more money through football. And so it's designed to be a win-win for everyone.
It's designed to be a win-win for everyone. Now, when I heard that, I think back to, I'd like to say I read it. I probably watched a documentary because I don't like to read. The idea of in the 1960s, when you had the NFL and the AFL, and it was Pete Rozelle as commissioner that allowed the merger to happen, that put everybody in a room and said, listen, we can collectively bargain these media right contracts. It will not be beneficial to some teams in the immediacy, but over the long haul, the entire league will benefit. And to the New Yorks and LAs, you'll make more as a collective unit than you will individually. Now, in the short term, you're gonna take a hit. But in the long term, this is where this will play out and be beneficial. This is where I think we're lacking right now in college sports. We've got some strong commissioners, but we don't have somebody who's in a leadership role in totality. So if we had somebody in leadership who could bring in Stanky from the SEC and we get the commissioner of the Big 10, Big 12, and put them in a room and say, listen, some of you might take a hit in the immediacy, but give it 5 years and this thing's going to grow exponentially, kind of like the senator noted in that sound clip. That would be awesome. The problem is right now, the Big 10, the SEC, the Big 12, everybody's got their own contracts. Some are better than others, and I'm not about to give up what I've already negotiated, which makes this idea of combining media rights a little bit silly in the current state.
Okay. Pure transparency. So I thought I had listened to all the clips yesterday, and I heard this clip for the first time. So this is the first time I'm hearing it. And it is everything I can do to not let my eyes roll all the way through the back of my skull. All right. This is where I think you have not you, but
No, that's
the
all right.
writers of the bill have no idea what they're talking about. They have no concept of what's going on. This just took the legitimacy for me. It took the legitimacy of what
There you
they are
go.
trying to do, and just kind of took it away. So there's going to be no Super League. Well, how are you going to prevent that? Okay, that's talk about lawyers. Now we're not even talking about athletes anymore.
Right.
We're gonna have a Super League. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know, and then the idea of collectively bargaining. Well, that's what kind of that happens. In fact, we've got this element right now where Duke is making their own idea, and
Yeah.
and Notre Dame has their own. I mean, it's all these different things, and he's saying it like it's brand new. Like, stop it, man. This is
And the idea that we sit today with, as you said, these universities negotiating,
Mhm.
wait till we'll use Notre Dame. Wait till a Notre Dame develops their own media contract for themselves. What I'm saying is kind of like what the Yankees have with the Yes Network.
Notre Dame has NBC.
Well, that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
true in kind of an extension, but I'm actually talking about we're going to build a communication center and we're going to handle our own business. We're going to sell our rights. We're going to do all of these things because as an independent, we'll make more money even than what we're getting now from NBC to show our football and basketball games. I think that could be something that we'll see here in the upcoming future because let's face it, we see it at the D3 level.
Mhm.
The D3 schools do a great job. If again, we always say go to their website, you click on the little icon, boom, you're all set and ready to roll. These major universities could do it at a much larger capacity that then would take the four-letter network and Fox and everybody else to task about having their games on their network when they can show it on their own. All right. Aaron's telling us we got to get to a break. On the other side of the break, we'll get some headlines. Next hour, Sean Wagner, the head coach at UWM, the baseball team that shocked the world yesterday.
You bet.
What a great win against Auburn. He'll join us to talk about their game coming up tonight against an opponent to be determined due to a rainout. So we'll get to talk to Coach. But then also in that second hour, this idea of leagues going off on their own is something Dan and I and Aaron will address, and we'll do it again all after the break. It's College Sports Weekly. We're live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. All right, welcome back in. We got just a short time here before we make our way to the top of the hour and get to talk with Sean Wagner, the head coach at UWM, as that baseball team with a great win yesterday. Real quick, Notre Dame 6:30, Western Illinois 6:15, Eastern Michigan 11:30, and Minnesota at the end of the year 6:30. What's that? Kickoff times for the upcoming Badger season. We're back at the top of the hour. Coach Wagner joins us.
Basketball, football, baseball. From Division 1 to Division 3, it's time for College Sports Weekly with Dom Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right, welcome in. Hour number 2 of College Sports Weekly. We are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, as we get ready to talk some baseball here in a moment. But let's take a moment and set the stage.
Yes.
Let's set the stage, because it's been a remarkable week for our UWM Panthers. It started in the Horizon League Championship, and it ended with not only the championship, but it ended in dramatic fashion with a walk-off homer. This clip courtesy of ESPN.
The 1-1. He drives that one into right field. That could be trouble back near the wall, and it is gone! It is gone! Spence homers and wins the game for the Milwaukee Panthers. And in the process, wins the Horizon League Tournament Championship.
So the Horizon League Championship gets you the automatic qualifier, and the Panthers then head to the Auburn Regional to take on Auburn. I mean, talk about a matchup, right? Not only do you have to go to Auburn, but you got to play the home team.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, what a day for the Milwaukee Panthers. Again, this courtesy of ESPN. This is what it sounded like when the game wrapped up.
Center field, Dylan O'Connell back, makes the catch over his head. For the first time in 27 years, the Milwaukee Panthers have won an NCAA tournament game, and in the process, shocked the baseball world here on day one of the 2026 NCAA tournament.
I mean, it was a little bit of everything. I mean, the offense was outstanding. 13 runs against one of the nation's best staffs, and they got off to a 10-0 lead and held on against this potent offense.
Well, and the coach who shocked the baseball world,
go.
who led the Panthers, now joins us on the Nicolay Law Talk and Text line. It's head coach Sean Wagner. Coach, good morning. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. I want to start this way. You've been in and around the state of Wisconsin, especially with regards to baseball. You played at UWM. You had an affiliation, a coaching stint, we can call it, at UW Whitewater with the Lakeshore Chinooks. So you're very much acclimated to the state as far as baseball goes at the college level. And looking at the roster, you've done, in my opinion, which is humble at best, a remarkable job of recruiting the state in getting the talent within the state to stay home.
Yeah, it's something that we take pride in. We know that we're the lone representative in our state for Division I baseball, and we want to make sure that we try to keep people here who have pride for the state and want to represent us at the highest level. And sometimes we can get those kids out of high school, and sometimes it might take a couple trips somewhere else before they come back home, as you see on our roster. So our job is just to try and assemble the best group of people that we can, both on and off the field, to go challenge for a championship. And I think that's what we've done this year.
Coach, talk about a little bit your experience when you were wrapping up the Horizon League tournament with that win. What was it like for you? What was it like for the players when you get back into the clubhouse after that dramatic walk-off? It had to be something special.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement. There's no doubt. And it was really just a testament to what our team has shown throughout the year. We've gone through a lot of failures, and in this game, it's marred with failure, right? You have to have some mental toughness to be able to overcome, and we use the word resilience a lot. And going into the top of the ninth, we're feeling pretty good. We put Cam in there, who's the reliever of the year, and Wright State, give them credit. They did damage to him, and they took the one-run lead. But throughout my time here as a player, as an assistant under Coach Scott Duffnick, who's my mentor, and now as the head coach, this is the team that truly never believes that it's over. And we always talk about if you have an out left, if you have a strike left, that's all it takes. So they were able to work that leadoff walk for Holmesy in the top of the ninth. And then Joey, what a special moment for Joey Spence, being able to put that ball over the fence. And what most people don't know is I truly believe this, and I'm pretty sure if you go back and watch, there was actually catcher's interference on that home run as well.
Wow. That's some
making it
power.
even harder,
yeah, that's some power there. Coach, what was the talk, the speech you gave going into yesterday's game? Because as I said in the intro, you're in the Auburn Regional taking on Auburn, a team that went 38-20 going into yesterday's game. I don't think there were many people outside of the fan base here in Milwaukee that may have given you much of a shot. And I think we can put the icing on the cake by the way ESPN and some of the other major media outlets are covering what you did yesterday. What was your speech, for lack of a better way of saying it, to the players going into yesterday's game?
Yeah, I didn't give a pregame speech yesterday. I actually spoke more so on the practice day. And it really came down to, I always ask these guys, like, where else would you want to be right now? Just really look around, embrace the environment, embrace the moment. You've worked hard since September to get here. It took a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and quite honestly, some honest conversations that we had to have. And they earned the right. So what's there to be scared of? I mean, our theme for the year, and this is actually honoring a former player of mine, or that I played with, a teammate, who passed away from cancer this fall. When he had cancer, he adopted the bison as his spirit animal, and his bison was named Carl. So Carl has kind of been our mascot throughout this, and our theme has been Into the Storm. It's the only animal in North America that when a storm is rolling in, they don't run from it, they go straight into it because you know you're going to get through it quicker. So that's kind of what we talked about is, you're here. We faced LSU, the national champs, to open our season. We went to that environment intentionally to prepare for a moment like this. You handled that moment. Now it's time to handle this one. And there's no expectations. There's no people thinking that we're going to roll in there and take care of Auburn. So what do we have to lose? Let's just go play baseball the way we know we can together. And it was special because on the bus, on the way there, we have obviously some connected people to our program that I reached out to, and Pat Murphy and Craig Council and Dalton Varsho, an alum, and AJ Blueball, an alum. And I made a compilation video of our Horizon League tournament highlights mixed in with messages from those guys. And I was hopeful, and I think it obviously worked, that got the guys pretty pumped up for the game. So it didn't take me speaking. It took a lot of people smarter than I sending messages our way.
I love the analogy that you had about, the spirit animal and moving into the storm, and just the quicker you go into it, the quicker you go out. And your season has had storms, so you've probably had to reach some spots during the season where maybe the attitude of the team or you said that they were resilient, but there had to be some moments where you thought, man, I'm not sensing what I want to sense out of the group. How did you pull them out and get them ready for the Horizon League tournament, where at that point everybody is 0-0 and everybody's got that equal opportunity to advance?
Yeah, we've had the highest of highs, and we've also been through the lowest of lows. And to me as a coach, I remember those more so than I remember the highs, where I want the players to really relish those highs. So we had moments where it was, where it was tough, right? And the one thing that I feel like I do well is have transparent conversations. One thing that I was always taught is, if you're going to be the leader, you've got to be the person that they look up to, and you got to be able to handle the moment better than anyone else. So sometimes that means let's sit down and let's air out our frustration. You tell me what I'm doing wrong. I will tell you where we got to get better. And the phrase that I always come back to for these guys is, in truth, there is trust. And trust isn't inherently given just because I'm your head coach. I've got to earn that. And vice versa, you have to earn it from me. So that's where just sitting down in the locker room, I'm pretty sure it was the end of our first half of the conference season, or just before, we had faced Youngstown State, who on paper, if you look at their record, they were not very good. And I believe Trevor Sharpie and that team is way better than their record was. But in that moment, we had just lost a home doubleheader to the worst team in the league at the time. And we just sat in the locker room and we aired it out, right? And that's what it takes. You have to be able to get vulnerable. We talk about a couple things. I want you to be your authentic self, and I want you to become vulnerable, because if you're going to hold it in, we're never going to get to where we got to get to. We have to be able to just open up and let it all out. So I called that our rock bottom, and I just gave the guys a challenge. I said, where do you guys want to go from here? This is a game that we as coaches, the practices are for us. We're going to prepare you guys, but when it comes to game time, this is your team. This is your story. You go write the history books and how you want to be remembered. So we've had that a couple times, and our guys have responded in the proper ways.
Talking with Coach Sean Wagner, the head coach for UWM, as they had the big win yesterday against Auburn, prepping for a game later this evening. We're still waiting to see who that matchup is going to be, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I want to go back to yesterday's game, Coach. You jump out to that 10-0 lead, and then we get to, I think it was the 6th inning where we got into the rain delay. Was there any concern, is the only word I can think of off the top of my head right now, about you had that momentum, and then all of a sudden Mother Nature interrupts it? Were you concerned at all about what the team would be doing once you got back on the field, that momentum was interrupted? Or did you look at it like, guys, we play in much crappier weather, playing spring baseball here in the state of Wisconsin. You got this. Go do your job.
Yeah, I think you can take that either way, right? And that's the job of a leader, is to help them understand what's going on, right? In that moment, Auburn was starting to get a little bit of momentum. They were starting to hit Riley a little bit, and Riley was a little nervous. I mean, he had some anxiety going on. And we used that as a time for him just to calm and relax, right? And get back to who he needed to be. Because when it comes to the weather, why we left Riley out there for all 9 innings, or all 5 innings there at the end, is because if you look back at his start in the Horizon League tournament against Wright State, he pitched in a worse condition than we had yesterday. So we knew he's already been through it. He's already been able to handle it. And you could see Auburn trying to get together right when that broke and try to really get some energy going in their dugout. And for us, it was like, go ahead, right? We believe in ourselves. We believe that we can handle this moment better than you guys can. Because that was one of the things Murph talked about in his message, right? He was at Arizona State. He was at Notre Dame. He was at big programs, very successful programs, and they had the target on their back. And when you come into this opening game as a 1 seed, you better not lose. That's what everyone's thinking. So they have the pressure. And some people have said, well, Wags, you're playing with house money. These guys should be free. We don't want to approach it that way. We know that there's no expectations, but we came here to win. We came here to represent our program, to represent our state, to represent our school the proper way. And if you don't want to believe in us, that's fine. We don't need you to be on our support side, but we just want to prove to people that we belong.
Well, you certainly did that yesterday. Go ahead, Dan.
Kind of going off of yesterday too, you had the opportunity to just kind of save some arms. You only used 2 pitchers. You used, Riley Peterson and Gavin Thies. How does that help you going into today's game? Granted, we don't know who you're playing yet, but does that put your mind at ease that you've got more fresh arms sitting in the pen waiting for you?
Yeah, it definitely does. Pitching and defense is typically where you're going to win most of your playoff games. No, I say that we scored, 13 yesterday, not all day, every day. But we know that these other 2 teams are pretty offensive when they get hot too. So we just have to make sure that we have enough bodies and arms available to try and do what we're trying to do here. So yeah, with Gavin and Riley being able to soak up that entire game and not having to get your pitcher of the year or the reliever of the year in there, that's a huge momentum swing for us in our minds.
Yeah.
Going into tonight with the uncertainty of the matchup, it's going to be either UCF or NC State. That game will start right after our show ends. I think first pitch is listed for 11:02. What is that like for you, Coach? Because I guess in the midst of that game, you're kind of scouting both to see what you're going to be up against later this evening, or are you pretty confident, let's say, in your scouting reports going into the tournament?
Yeah, I have to give my staff credit. Coach Porcaro, Mike Porcaro, does a lot of the pitcher side of it and really scouts the pitchers using our software that we utilize. Corey Bigler, our pitching coach, delves into the hitters. Jack Sievers, my first base coach, does a tremendous job with the base running. When I was an assistant, I dove into all that stuff, but I have such a great staff that I can kind of turn that over to them and trust what they're doing. So they've done a lot of the prep work already. We were all watching the games last night, and the biggest thing about last night is you're just trying to cross off, okay, this guy threw, maybe those arms won't be available, so you can kind of eliminate maybe a couple people in your minds. But at this time in the tournament, I don't think it matters who your opponent is. You're going to find a good baseball club. You're going to find someone who believes they can win. You just got to go out and execute. So I'm very grateful for the staff that I have, 2 of those being alums of the program like myself. I think that just brings a next level pride to what we're trying to do here.
I'm going to go off on the idea that, the players will appreciate this experience, this journey that they're on, have a deeper understanding of what it meant maybe 2, 3, 4 years from now because of youth, right? They'll be able to look back on it and really think about what it is they've accomplished. Not saying that you're not young, but but what has this been for you personally right now to get through kind of the gauntlet of the season that you had, find yourself, earn your way into the NCAA tournament? Have you allowed yourself any opportunity just to sit back and just take it in a little bit?
Yeah, my kids remind me that I'm old all the time. So you're not the only people, and the gray hairs in my beard aren't helping either. But I think back to 2010 when I got to experience it, thankfully, in this program, and the feelings I had then. You never are ready for it. I think in the moment, it shocks a lot of people. But for me personally, I felt like it was just another win because I was fortunate enough to have lived in this space and lived in these shoes. But watching our guys celebrate, man, that brought so much joy to me because I know how hard they've worked. I know what they've had to go through. It wasn't easy. At some point in our season, we could have just quit and we didn't, right? And when I put the schedule together, I have a lot of people telling me like, man, you're crazy. You guys really go through a gauntlet early. I don't know why you do that. And for me, when I think back to my time as a player, it's about the experiences. It's about the relationships. It's about going through some of those things. And maybe you didn't find a victory, but you hung or you were there. And the other fans respected our program because of it. So our goal is always to get to the regional. And how are we going to be prepared for the regional if we don't try to show them what the regional environment is going to be like early? So I had people telling me, you're nuts, man. You're going to LSU. That's the national champs from last year. I don't know why you do that to yourselves. This is exactly why we schedule LSU to open the season, because I wanted to go find out what kind of a team we are, where our strengths and our weaknesses were so we could attack them throughout the season. And then I wanted them to know, like, you've been in this environment before. This isn't going to shock you. It's not going to wow you. Let's just handle it maybe a little bit better than we did in week 1.
Well, I can say this, whether the bandwagon was full or not, people are making room for those that are jumping on right now because the fan base up here is excited for what took place yesterday and looking forward to the game this evening, whether it's UCF or NC State. Coach, you've always got a platform with us. Anytime you want to come on, you are more than welcome, and we wish you nothing but success. I don't want to say good luck because it's not going to rely on luck. It's going to rely on success. So we're going to wish you nothing but success this evening and hope to talk to you down the road.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for following along, and go Panthers.
There you go.
Panthers.
That's head coach Sean Wagner of the UWM Panther baseball program. Again, after that big win yesterday against Auburn, it still boggles a little bit of the imagination of the fact that you were playing in Auburn. I mean, Auburn had the table set for them
absolutely,
as good as anybody, and yet here come the Panthers rolling in, jump out to that 10-0 lead. And again, I brought it up with Coach. I got a little nervous during that rain delay because, Dan, you talk about momentum quite frequently with regards to some of the teams that we speak of. And I thought the momentum was on UWM's side, and I thought Mother Nature was going to interrupt it, but yet they found a way to fight through.
When that rainstorm happened, what jumped into my brain was Cubs-Indians World Series, and how the Cubs were able to use that time to kind of regroup and do that. And UWM, in this case, was able to keep the pressure on a lot through the pitching on that back half and really, keep Auburn at bay. And again, we talk about this a lot about college basketball, but again, the amount of talent that is distributed throughout the U.S. with the camps and the clubs and everything that's out there, there probably was a little bit of Auburn thinking, well, this is just UWM. And you know what I mean? And now there's Auburn is one game away from being eliminated.
I know.
And tell me they don't feel that.
There's
right?
a little pressure
Little
down
bit,
there in the
yeah,
state of
little bit.
Alabama right now. And we saw the same thing later last evening when St. Mary's dropped UCLA, who's
Yeah.
the number 1 seed.
Right.
So another team, again, that was expected to just roll through, feeling a little bit of pressure going through this particular weekend. So again, coming up tonight, 7:00, you can find it on the 4-letter network, that being ESPN or one of their offshoots. It will be UWM taking on either UCF or NC State. Now, that game again will first pitch take place about 2 minutes after we get off the air after their rain out last night. So we'll have to wait a few hours to find out who UWM is going to face. But it was another instance when Coach was talking, and we've had this happen with like Coach Janis when he was at UW La Crosse, or we talked to people from Whitewater or Oshkosh. They start talking, and I'm sitting in my chair. I'm rocking like, let's go. I don't think I could throw a baseball 5 feet anymore, but I'm ready to roll when you listen to how they just conduct themselves in that particular interview. You know what they're talking to their teams about. And I can understand why this team rallies and has progressed to where they're sitting at right now under his leadership. It's going to be fun watch this evening. So let's take a break. Let's shift gears once again. Want to talk about the breakout leagues that this bill that we talked about in the first hour is supposed to kind of curtail. The SEC talking about jumping ship, so to speak, and creating their own league without the NCAA and everybody else. And it's such a mess. We'll get to it after a break. It's College Sports Weekly live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We're powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. All right, welcome in. It's College Sports Weekly. We're live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We're powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. And real quick, Dan, I mean, we were talking about this off the air. I mean, listening to Coach, my goodness, I was ready to run through a wall. I mean, you can just there are certain people
that
who have leadership capabilities that just come through even in a brief conversation like we had. And it's those leadership abilities. I think I wish that we had those in the higher ups who are trying to figure out college sports had a little bit more of what we heard from Coach.
Yeah, I really loved his comment about trust.
Yeah.
And it just, when you're having those conversations and that's absorbed, especially when you're having those meetings and maybe you're at that place where you've got to be transparent, but just taking into account how trust is earned and how it's built. And it's not about who I am. It's about what we're developing together.
Right.
Kind of a thing. It was fun to listen to, but like you said, every now and again, thankfully, frequently on this show, we've been able to have conversations with coaches, basketball, football, and now baseball that are just like, I could play for you.
Absolutely. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say what stood out to me is my parents told me too many times for me to count. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that's a big, if he would have come on here and just said the words,
right,
we probably all could have felt that maybe, he didn't maybe mean it as much. You could tell that, when he was speaking, that's what he wanted to say.
There's a passion behind it.
There's a genuineness,
right? There's a genuineness and a passion behind it that really came through. And hopefully Coach Wagner and the UWM Panthers get another win tonight and advance in a tournament that I don't think anybody outside, again, of the local fan base that was rooting for them had any hopes of them winning, especially again yesterday. So congratulations on the win, but one more, and the idea of advancing is something that's going to be really special for that athletic community and the university as a whole. Think about the number of eyes. I mean, I wish, we could see the tallies just of people who went ahead and looked at UWM yesterday on their website.
Right.
The amount of traffic that was driven there, which then could potentially lead to a few more enrollees just because of the fact that they had success, eyes were drawn, they start to look at what programs are offered on the academic side, or you've got a baseball player, whether it's in the state or the surrounding area, that suddenly now looks at UWM in a completely different light and thinks about themselves donning the Panther uniform.
Yeah, I didn't want to get away from the task at hand and talking about the games and what they're accomplishing and doing all that, but there was a question floating around in the back of my head. Are you recruiting right now?
Oh,
are you using this opportunity to reach out to the players you're trying to capture in state, out of state? And hey, are you going to watch this tonight? Did you watch this yesterday?
And I'll say the worst thing about it, you're also now recruiting your own players because they've had success, and the eyes of other coaches are upon them and looking like, we could use that to play shortstop. We could use so-and-so in the outfield. So you're continually in that recruiting mode. I think that's a really good point. The SEC this week had their media week. This time
they never fail in media week.
Never fail. They went to Destin, Florida, and I heard some people say, the weather wasn't all that great, and I felt really bad for them. They got to go to Destin, Florida, and hang out for a week. And
was it posh?
And have their
it
has to be posh.
Got to be posh.
Come on, you got to compete, right? The SEC, Big Ten, they're trying to be top dog. How's that?
Oh, look at you.
Listen, we should write the rap and submit it. We got this thing. We're going to make us some money. But the idea now that has been floated out, when Kirby Smart said it, and you sent me the
finally
article,
said it. Yeah.
When he said it, the one thing I knew is that Kirby Smart has no problem if somebody else speaks it. I'll repeat it. I'm sure somebody's like, okay, we're going to talk about this in hushed tones. And Kirby's the kind of coach over the years that's like, well, you said it. I got no problem. I'm just going to say what I got to say. There are some people who will bring it up and you're like, it's hyperbole. You're just trying to make a headline. When somebody like Kirby Smart says it, you go, oh, this is a discussion that's being happened. That's been happening.
It's okay.
Oh, goodness.
So Kirby Smart was talking.
Kirby Smart was talking. Thank you, Dan. But what they're saying now is that the SEC might want to break away and do their own thing. We don't want to compete. We'll break away, do our own thing. We'll have our own league championship. We'll do everything on our own. And here's what made me laugh. And you brought it up in the first hour when you talk about lawyers. Right now, everybody who wants to sue. So if I'm just going to use Tennessee as an example, Tennessee does something as far as eligibility goes. Who's getting sued? Not Tennessee, the NCAA. And so this talk of the SEC wanting to break off, I'll use kids' terms. They don't want that smoke. They just don't. They don't want it because now instead of the NCAA being sued, you're going to get sued. And to think that you're going to break off and everything's going to be kumbaya is another kind of what you were describing when we were going through the bill. It's like, who's putting this out there? Why are we putting this out there? Because if you are truly thinking about it, you haven't really thought it all the way through.
It was fun to hear. When I read that article, I'm like, okay, Kirby, thank you, because there's no way there's not a little bit of that attitude floating through the SEC and thinking what they could do. And when you talk about hypotheticals, could this happen? Would it happen? That I'd love to see it. I'd love to see them try. I think if they do it, it would be SEC football, SEC baseball, SEC basketball, and then all the other teams can still be housed within some level of NCAA affiliation. So I don't think it would ever be just a complete jettison of the NCAA except for where the money is made. But you're talking about, who gets sued. Here's my thing. So you've got this, I don't know how we're defining super leagues anymore. You've already got 20 teams in the SEC, probably more. So I don't know how that's being defined, but that there are teams that were bought into the SEC because of the money they can get as a result of an NCAA tournament, as a result of a football tournament, basketball tournament, whatever it's going to be. We know that money is shared within the conferences whenever X amount of teams gets into different levels of these tournaments. So there are going to be teams in the SEC that are never going to smell any kind of championship that will lose money by way of not getting their piece of the pie from being in these NCAA tournaments. And that's where the lawsuits come.
And I would argue that even the higher ups, if we broke the SEC into thirds, if we took the top third of the SEC, they would lose money because I don't know. Tell me if I'm right or wrong, Aaron. If I'm the NCAA and you want to break off, if you want to take baseball, football, and basketball and go do your own thing, well, go do your own thing. You're not coming into our tournament. You know what? You're not going to be in the field of 5,633 or whatever we're expanding to here in the near future. Have your own little tournament. You're not getting a share of this piece of the pie since you wanted to break off and do your own thing.
They're not. They break off. They're not a part of the tournament.
No, they can't be.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's You have your own. Your SEC tournament just becomes your national tournament, I guess, or whatever.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Whatever they want to call it. You guys want to hear from Kirby Smart? I have a little audio.
Let's do a little Kirby Smart.
But I've said this for a long time to our president. I've been a huge advocate that if we can't find rules that everybody plays by, then we should play our own. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to break away and say that our conference is strong enough to go out and play. I mean, like if we could actually function and it financially would make our programs more stable and we could support things financially. I'm talking about all the sports and do by our own rules. I'd be all for that. I mean, I've been to this meeting now 10, 11 times, and it's frustrating at times to say, well, we can't do this because of litigation. We can't do this because of litigation. We can't do this because we'll get sued. We can't do that. And we're just trying to do things for the betterment of the sport and the betterment of the student athletes.
Are we supposed to talk now? I've never laughed so hard during a clip in all my life. When he starts with saying that if we can't find a set of rules by which we all can participate by, the SEC,
there you go.
In its former incarnation of college athletics, was the leader in doing things under the table. It's one of the reasons why the SEC has been scrambling over the last few years, is that now there's a bit of equity across the board where a player can go to Wisconsin or Texas A&M or UCLA and get some money that you were giving players, allegedly. I don't want Top Dog to have to come get me, but allegedly in years past. It's just there's such a sanctimonious tone to it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, those that are watching on YouTube or on social media would have seen. I mean, we're in here dying. I'm laughing hysterically through this because
Don, he just wants it to be fair.
Oh, stop. Stop. And then has nerve enough to say, well, if we can figure out a way for this to be profitable. It took us 30 seconds to debunk what would happen financially to the SEC if you go ahead and break away. If you go ahead and break away, go. You're not going to have the resources that you currently have. You're going to have a few bucks in order to get players. That doesn't change because we're still talking about NIL. We're still talking about alumni donations, all of that stuff. But there's a large percentage of revenue that you, the university, and the athletic department are going to lose out on. So when you start talking about I got Tennessee on the brain for whatever reason. Let's say let's use Georgia since we were just talking about Kirby. There are going to be schools that will ostracize the Georgias, the Tennessees, the Alabamas of the world because you broke off. You want to break off? Go do your own thing. But you want a marquee game against the Notre Dame? You want a marquee game against now in Indiana? Not going to happen. Don't go do your own thing. You want to pick up your bag and go? Pick up your little McDonald's bag and your parking ticket envelope and go someplace with it because we're not going to participate in it. It just, the amount of ridiculousness that was spewed in that clip that Aaron pulled up is just unbelievable.
I love just it was finally an opportunity for someone to say without saying, we're the SEC. We're better.
Yes.
We're better. And you all do what you want to do, but we could do this. I can't get past the idea of using this concept of equity and fairness, that somehow because the Big 10 or the Big 12 are somehow doing the same things. By the way, who did you pull out of the Big 12? Texas,
right?
Oklahoma.
Yes.
It's just shut up. So tell you what, if you want to go, and you'll claim the South. They will.
Oh, sure.
They'll claim the South, and I don't mean that in any negative way. That the fan base down there is always going to believe the SEC is better no matter what. They're going to claim that. They're going to run with it. But then you don't get the New York market. You don't get the Chicago market. You don't get all those things except for those occasional one-off games.
And Aaron, you'll get eyeballs.
Yeah.
There'll still be some people. I mean, on a Saturday afternoon, depending upon the matchup, I'll sit down and watch Auburn and Alabama, even if they've broken off. But again, you're going to be missing out on some of that revenue sharing, not like we were talking about in the first segment, but just even if we just take basketball, right, with the billions of dollars that are dispersed because of the basketball tournament, and you've broken off and you're not a part of that. The SEC can do its own tournament. Great. You're still not going to generate the level of revenue that you would obtain if you remain part of the current structure.
Yeah, it's not going to be like the UFL or Live Golf or some other smaller league or developmental league or however you want to quantify those leagues. It won't be quite that, but we'll watch. We'll watch Auburn, Alabama. We'll watch Georgia, Alabama, whatever it is. But in the back of our minds and in our hearts, we'll know probably doesn't mean as much, and that will hurt in the long run because you have to have something meaningful, and forever the NCAA is meaningful to us. That's how we watch our college sports. Without it, I think it's going to take a decent hit.
And the idea that, okay, because we just got done saying the SEC has an elevated opinion of themselves. At some point, I think those within the SEC have to take a step back, because when has Arkansas been relative? Really?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we constantly think of
Missouri.
the Georgias, the Alabamas.
Mhm.
Vandy has kind of,
Uh-huh.
with investments into their facilities, eked up a little bit. Tennessee. But yeah, right. I mean, the Arkansas, the Missouris of the world, they're not something
Mississippi State.
that people are
Yeah.
clamoring about.
Mhm.
The only thing is they have SEC next to their name, so they get a little bit more stature than they would maybe if they were in the Big 12 or if they were even in the Big 10. But let's stop thinking that every single team in the SEC is the greatest thing that walks the face of the earth, because yes, you do have good teams. So does the Big 10, so does the Big 12. And guess what? You also have some really crappy teams. So does the Big 10, and so does the Big 12. I mean, that's just the way sports is.
And there's a great article not too long ago about I kind of wish going off the article, I kind of wish this would happen just to watch it implode a little bit.
Yes.
This would be like the Housewives of the SEC, only you're just doing the coaches component of it and just watching it go, because within these super conferences, I'll call the SEC again, define it as you will, but if you want to call the SEC a super conference, then within those there are universities that have brands that don't need the conference. They can do their own thing. Alabama could be considered a super team without the SEC. Meanwhile, Missouri is never going to get the same thing. It's never going to be the same.
No.
So Alabama, kind of like what Duke has done, has been able to create its own level of revenue. If they're their own brand, leveraging their own brand and putting that into getting additional revenue, Alabama could do the same thing for football in a way that Missouri never could.
Right.
It's never going to be equitable.
No,
ever.
Never. And it's always funny. The teams that are successful and wealthy are the ones spewing that, yeah, we'll just break off. We'll be fine.
Okay.
Not even thinking about what the rest of the league will look like. Another thing real quick as we get to break, Jacob Coffey, Elliot Cadeau, Keanu Dawes, John Blackwell, just some of the 36 college basketball players that opted into the NBA draft that had until midnight last night to withdraw their name and return to college. You can go on a ton of websites and see the rest of those individuals who are now going back to college. Some, again, simply because they can make more money. And it goes back to that whole aspirational thing that we talked about in the first hour. All right, last break of the day. I don't know if Aaron's ready to hand out a shovel. Another novice journey into handing out a
I'm
shovel.
semi-prepared.
Ooh, I like this.
Nice.
All right. So when we come back, we'll hand out some shovels as we wrap up this week's episode. It's College Sports Weekly. We're live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. One last time, it's College Sports Weekly live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We got some shovels to hand out. Aaron, it's your maiden voyage, sir. Go ahead, hand out a shovel.
All right, I'm giving a shovel to UCLA quarterback Carson Gordon's agent. He has found a transfer portal workaround. So quarterback, and he is entering the transfer portal as a track athlete.
Oh, there you go. And then suddenly when we get to the next school, I'm dropping track.
That's some good lawyering right
Wow.
there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the way to work around the deadline for the college football portal.
Well done, sir. All right, Professor, go.
Okay, I have my first Shovel the Funk challenge.
Uh-oh.
Okay, this goes to Ryan Day. Ryan, you going to take that from Kirby Smart?
Ooh.
Come on, represent.
Oh,
now it's your turn to say what the Big Ten can do by itself on its own. Let's have this feud. You ready for the feud? Let's do it.
That'll be next week's segment.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. My shovel is going to Scott Warris, the voice of UWM Panther baseball and basketball, who was prominent today in getting us our guest, and that was head coach Sean Wagner, and wishing he and everybody else at UWM a lot of success.
Absolutely.
As first pitch will hit tonight at 7:00. For the Professor Dan Underberg, Aaron, thank you so much for working with us today. We much appreciate it. I'm Don Wachillis. This has been College Sports Weekly. We're back in 6 and 22.